I'm Lisi Keeker, a longtime studio owner turned founder here at Studio Grow. Just a few years ago, I was building my studios the hard way. So I didn't have the team, the budget, or most importantly, the time. Now, if you speed up to today, I sold my wildly profitable studios in the mid 7 figures while serving my community in ways I could have only dreamed. Now I work with thousands of boutique fitness studio owners in over 40 countries, and I am so blessed to share some of the best tested strategies for our industry every single week. I created this podcast so you'd always have clear, actionable processes, tried and tested advice, and just some good old-fashioned inspiration. So you can take steps to grow your studio and turn it into a powerhouse empire just like I did. If you're a studio owner who's ready to impact your community and see major growth in the process, or you're prepping to become one, then you're in the right place. So let's kick this off, shall we?
Welcome back to the Business of Boutique Fitness. Super excited to have you here listening today. And if you're watching for the first time, excited to have you be able to see us talk about all of these things that are so exciting to us and core to our businesses. Today, we're going to be talking about sales, a sales rhythm specifically that speaks to and works for your business. But first, let me introduce myself. I am Caroline Plambeck. I am the team captain and a business coach here at Studio Grow. I also own a yoga studio in Portland, Oregon, and am in the midst of opening up another multimodality and recovery-focused studio also in Portland. So sales, I understand, so key to my own experience as a business owner, and I help coach sales with all of my clients every day. So let's start with this. If you are seeing your revenue only spike during promos and then crash, this is your wake-up call. Maybe you are throwing these promotions together slapdash because you're worried you're not going to make rent or payroll. This is what we're going to try to mitigate. Sales here, it's not about hustle, right? It's about rhythm and finding the rhythm that specifically works for your clientele, your team, and where you're at with your business goals. Now, when I see clients coming into the program, oftentimes what we hear is sales doesn't feel authentic. They don't want to sound too salesy or pushy. Sales is this whole dirty word, but it's also the core of our business. It's what is going to allow us to have those full energetic classes that are so fun to be a part of and so fun to teach to. And so we need to be focusing on sales. And more so than that, we need to make sure everyone on our team, from instructor to front desk to manager to ourselves as the owners, understand their role in the sales process. So when we don't have a system, everything feels reactive and last minute. And I think also what we see is that there's often this huge focus on front-end offers, our intro to member conversion, or getting people in for that first class. That is so key. But we also need to focus on reactivation and engaging those long-term clients. So just as much care as we put into the intro offer sales process, we need to follow up with our clients to have them stay with us forever and ever. And I think also when we think about sales and the objections we get to implementing a new sales process into a studio, I often find owners say that it feels inauthentic, or I need a sales process that feels authentic to my clients, my customers, and my team. And so that's what we're going to try to do today, right? Figure out that cultural rhythm so that sales isn't something we're trying to throw into all of these roles you've already created in your studio. It's just built into the rhythm. It's built into the fabric of your studio, and everyone understands their place in this rhythm and why it's important to their role in the long-term vision for the studio. So in creating this sales rhythm, let's look at it in 3 parts. And these 3 parts are going to be broken down very simply. Your daily, your weekly, and your monthly focuses on sales. Now, I preface that saying, hopefully at the start of each year or quarter, whenever you're doing this more strategic planning for your business, you're also setting those larger goals, which is where having those large goals comes in handy so we can reverse engineer all of our smaller goals to hit each day, week, or month. So if we look at daily connection with clients, this is so important. This is following up with those new leads that came into your pipeline. And when I say following up with those new leads, I mean within 24 hours, especially if you're putting money behind advertisements. We want to make sure that as soon as someone has shown interest in your studio, they are being contacted. And yes, automations are amazing. Have that beautiful email go out to them. Have that beautifully personalized text that prompts a response, but also pair it with a phone call. or an in-person contact point if this person is walking into your studio. Now, phone calls are the number one thing that I see all of my clients object to in implementing in the sales process. But when I look at my more successful clients, it's also the one thing that is setting them apart. I will say I have a very call-heavy client journey at my studio. I am also a person who never answers my phone, but I will always listen to the voicemail. I will always read the voicemail transcript, and that might inform my decision to pick up the call the next time the studio calls me. I think also if we think of the amount of studios and the types of client journey they have, think of when you walked into that new studio for the first time and you were really nervous. Maybe it was the modality, the space, this new community you were trying to settle into. If you get that call that's acknowledging, hey, this is new and here's the processes, here's what you need to know, or hey, how was that first class? How did it feel? Can I recommend another class for you? That goes a long way. So I think when we think of these daily connections, we really want to personalize. This can be personalizing the method of communication. Maybe you're chatting with a new lead and they didn't respond to your email, they didn't respond to your phone call, but wow, they're texting you like crazy. Amazing. Personalize it. Keep texting them. Make that sale. And we can also look at personalization in terms of all of these other processes that support our sales that we can implement down the line. I think of an at-risk process. If you haven't seen your favorite member that always comes to the noon class that you offer on Wednesdays in a couple of weeks, this is the time to reach out and say, hey, I've missed you. I haven't seen you in a minute. Can I get you booked in for another class? Those types of touch points go a long way. Now, in order to create our daily connections or our daily call list and make sure we're tackling both that personalization that we know is so important and those touch points on the client journey that are predetermined that we know we need to happen, we need to have a weekly framework in mind too. And this weekly framework I find works really well with your leadership team having a check-in. What are our goals for the month? And now where are we in the month? Let's say we need to get 5 intros and we know that we convert intros at a rate of 50% to membership. So we're going to look to get 2 or 3 memberships this week. And if we reverse engineer that backwards a little bit more, we're going to need 10 leads. So let's assess where we are in the process. Do we have ads going? Do we need to do some community outreach? Do we want to try to win back some old clients? Really determining goals, creating a strategy based on what you're seeing in the studio and making sure the whole team is on the same page. And then we need to be able to distill that down to the team members that are actually making these calls or automating these pieces of the client journey, maybe facilitating these interactions in studio. So again, everyone is on the same page and everyone can play a role in this sales process. I think sometimes people are a little hesitant to involve their instructors in the sales process, and I get it. They signed on to be a yoga teacher, maybe not your star salesperson, but they're also the face of the business. And if I can catch a member on the way out the door of their first class and just say, hey, how was it? I would love to see you back here again. I teach Wednesday at 6 a.m. Can I get you on the list? That can go a long way, right? We want people to feel seen, to feel like they have found their place and their community, and to feel validated when they come in. And that is what is going to allow you to have that authenticity that you're seeking in your sales process. So if we do this weekly conversion check-in with the team, we set our goals out for the week. That's going to set us off on the right foot. Now, we want to have a check-in midweek. And maybe this isn't a formal check-in, and this is where having those employees on your team that can really see the issue and solve it is so key. So if my sales manager sees that, wow, we haven't sold any intros this week and we need to sell 10, we need to game plan, right? This is all hands on deck. What are we going to do? Are we going to go check in with our community partners and see if we can pull something together? Are we, again, going to seek out all of those people on our email list who have been really engaged with our texts or our emails but haven't yet purchased that intro? This is where we have to start using all this data we collect, whether it's in our lead tracker or our software, to start strategizing on what we're seeing. And I think also key to note is no one month is the same in the studio. And so when we look at setting these annual or quarterly goals, I'm a big fan of adjusting for seasonality. I think a lot of studios, we see that downturn in the summer. Specifically, I think of my studio, we're hot yoga, right? The heat of the summer, that is not the time that most people are going to try a 100-degree yoga class for the first time. It's just not. And so we pivot and we offer other options. But this is when I start to downtrend our goals for sales just a little bit. Now, downtrending those goals doesn't mean that we aren't going to make it up elsewhere. In fact, when it comes to those higher points of the year, I think September, when everyone settles back into the daily rhythm, or January, when that new year, new me mentality comes back in full force, now I'm going to really trend our numbers upward, and we are going to have bigger goals, but also the likelihood is that we're not going to have as tough of a time hitting those goals in that time. So again, looking at your weekly conversions, having them in line with your monthly goals, and having that check-in at the end of the week with the team. And this can be super quick. I think when we say check-in and we implement all of these, it can be daunting of like, oh man, I only have so many hours in the day. How am I going to fit all of these in? Maybe it's implementing a simple Google form, a daily shift report from your front desk staff and a daily shift report from your managers to highlight wins, highlight some objections we saw in the sales process, really make sure they're tracking how many client interactions they're making, how many intros, maybe cash that they're generating each day. Having them involved in that kind of metric and data generating process can be really strong, and also give you as the owner or the manager of this studio some oversight, seeing what's going well, seeing how the team is strategizing when things aren't going well, and jumping in when you need to. Now, if we look at monthly check-ins, the monthly portion of your sales rhythm, I think it is so helpful to have a campaign, an intentional campaign. And when I say campaign, it doesn't need to be this big, massive flash sale where we are undercutting our prices. It's not always the time for that. A campaign can be a theme. It could be nurturing referrals, right? Friends and family. And maybe your software already provides a way for you to easily solicit those referrals. Or maybe as you start seeking out referrals, you're going to spruce up your member journey and start implementing some touch points where you're asking members to bring a friend, and that's going to bring you those leads. And hey, when we get those members in the door, their referrals are likely our strongest quality leads. So ideally our sales process from there is a bit more simple. I think part of this monthly campaign focus is also helpful to do at, again, your annual or your quarterly strategic planning session. What are the themes we see in each month of the year? What are our really high months? How are we going to tackle that? Are there any anniversaries we want to celebrate in the studio? All of these things. So looking at these campaigns, and when we set these campaigns, setting really clear goals to them so that, if we want to run this referral campaign we're running with again next year, maybe we didn't quite hit the goal we set out to. Or, if I had done it again next time, I would have changed it up a little bit. It's always trial and error. We're trying to set ourselves up for success and create templates in the future, but also know that every season, every quarter is going to be a bit different, and we can always learn from our mistakes. So how do we build this sales rhythm? We've got this daily, this weekly, and this monthly connection in place. We obviously have to communicate that to our team. I think also what becomes key here, as you can see, is the focus is on conversion and numbers, not just feeling like, I think we've got a lot of leads in the door. Classes feel kind of full. So you need to choose your lead metric and maybe pick one to focus on. If you are just implementing this in your studio, maybe your attrition is wild. You're losing members at a very high rate. Maybe that means your focus this month is going to be on members, member journey. And our weekly conversion goals are going to be more focused around member attrition and keeping members, or learning how to save the membership instead of letting them cancel out. And maybe in that daily connection, I'm going to task my staff members with reaching out to those members that we haven't seen in a minute. Or getting ahead of it, making sure that before it's been 2 weeks, before someone has come in for a class, they're being contacted, nurtured. Maybe we're setting the precedent that you book your next class before you leave the studio for this class. So I think here, what becomes key is that you've looked over your KPIs. You knew the key performance indicators for your business. It's in line with your goals, and you can choose the lead metric that speaks most closely to what you're trying to achieve in the studio right now. Then I think building that ritual around tracking and assigning clear ownership. Okay, is it all on me to create the campaign and the weekly follow-up and the daily connection? Or is it me, the owner, who is going to create the campaign? And then I'm going to task my sales manager with, the weekly metrics we need to hit. And it is their job to distill that down to the front desk team, who is actually going to be making these connections with clients. And then further, we're going to involve our teaching staff in so that they can understand their role in this and maybe make some, pointed check-ins towards clients that they haven't seen in their classes recently. Again, get everyone involved and make sure they know their role. Then pick one campaign, plan it 30 days out. Again, make sure it's in line with your goals. We look at attrition, that can be a great one. Maybe your intro to membership conversion could be a bit higher. Okay, let's look at how we can do that. Let's adjust our automations. Let's implement a new manual touch point. Maybe as simple as just tweaking some of the language in your existing automations to include more assumptive language or end in a question. I think one of my favorite things when I walk into my studio is when someone goes, "Oh, Caroline, I was just texting you." And I'm like, "It wasn't me, it was an automation, but I'm so glad because that got the point across. And now we're having this amazing conversation that feels so natural." We want more of that. Now, I also want you to remember you don't need more offers. You just need to be confident and really stand behind the offers that you do have. Again, we want to move away from that knee-jerk reaction of, "Oh, money is tight. I need to put together this flash sale and class packs are 75% off. Just come in. No, you priced your studio for a reason, and you need to stand behind that pricing. You understand the value, the level of service that you're offering, and if you're listening to this, you're probably gearing up to unroll a really exceptional client journey that is worth your clients paying that rate for. So stand behind the pricing and also suss out, do any team members that you're working with have maybe that lack of confidence in the pricing, because it'll come across, right? So again, team is on the same page, and know that sales becomes easier when you practice it, which means, yes, building this rhythm in and taking those daily, those weekly, those monthly touch points, but also role playing with your team. I cannot overstate how important role playing is. And this is part of where that metric tracking that you have in place, noting what objections we're seeing right now, or why members are canceling, or why they're not coming in for the first class is so key. If we have those noted, now we can strategize as a team and we can role play this so everyone feels incredibly confident when they overcome that financial objection and know, I'm going to have to push back and ask some hard questions, but if it leads to the sale, it leads to the sale. So I hope all of this has been helpful in helping you sort out how to create a daily sales rhythm for your studio. And, again, it doesn't have to feel salesy. It doesn't have to feel pushy. What you're trying to create is a space for people to come in and find their people, find their community, find movement that probably spoke to you so much that you opened a studio surrounding it. And so filter that into your client journey. Filter that into the way you talk about clients. Get to know their goals. And you can speak most highly on how your studio is uniquely positioned to help them reach those goals. Again, at the end of the day, we're trying to create these emotional connections, and that's what's going to lead people to wanting to be in your studio and wanting to be in your studio for a long time. So I hope that's been helpful. I'm excited to catch you guys on the next one. Feel free to like, subscribe, share this podcast with anyone you think would be helpful in building their own sales rhythm, and we'll catch you on the next one.